Good morning, my firsties. I'm glad that you've tuned in again. Yesterday we read chapter 1 of Leroy Ninker Saddles Up, and so today we'll read chapter 2, but I wanted to go back and just look at one of the parts where Beatrice was talking about taking fate in your hands and wrestling it to the ground and what that really means. So I'm thinking in my good brain that fate is something that's going to happen anyways. And I think what Beatrice was just trying to tell Leroy was to go and do it, to make it happen, to go get that horse and become a real cowboy. And so we're going to continue with chapter 2 today. I've got my bookmark right here. Oh, by the way, if you are local, visit your local Gottwalls books. They have tons of books. They're used books, so they're a really good price. And this one doesn't have it, but if you keep the sticker on the back of the book, you can actually trade it in for half of what the book costs. So if you've got some time, go visit Gottwalls and pick you up some books so you guys can read either along with me or read some new books for yourselves. All right, here we go with chapter 2. The next morning after breakfast, Leroy Ninker put his hat on his head and his boots on his feet. He consulted the ad from the Gisford Gazette. He read aloud the address of the horse for sale. Route 16, third house on the left, said Leroy Ninker. And then he said it again. Route 16, third house on the left, just to make sure that he had it right. Leroy folded the ad back up. He put it in his wallet and he adjusted his hat. He was now prepared to take fate in his hands and wrestle it to the ground. He was ready to procure a horse. Leroy set out walking. The sun was high above his head and the sky was very blue. As Leroy walked, he imagined that he was on the open plain. A car drove by. "Look, Mama!" A boy in the back seat of the car pointed at Leroy. "It's a very tiny cowboy." Leroy stood up straighter. "I am a cowboy on his way to procure a horse," he said. "I am a man wrestling fate to the ground." Another car drove by. Someone threw the can out the window. The can hit Leroy Ninker in the head. "Dag-nibbit," said Leroy. He stopped and took off his hat. He rubbed at his head. "Don't get agitated," he told himself. "Just keep thinking about your horse." Leroy Ninker put his hat back on his head and started walking again. He thought about his horse. "I hope he is a fast horse," he thought, "and I hope that he is strong. I will call him Tornado," he thought. Leroy found his name so pleasing that he had to stop walking, and he held himself very still and properly considered the glory of the word. "Tornado," whispered Leroy, and then he shouted it. "Tornado!" It was the most perfect name for a horse. "Tornado!" shouted Leroy Ninker again. "Yippee-yi-yo!" The cowboy started to run. He was heading to meet the horse of his dreams. There was no time to waste. "I'm on my way, Tornado!" shouted Leroy Ninker as he ran down the side of the road. By the time Leroy made it to his destination, it was late afternoon and his feet hurt. What can I do for you?" said the woman who answered the door. "I am here about a horse," said Leroy. "You're interested in Maybelline?" said the woman. "Maybelline?" said Leroy. "Follow me, Hank," said the woman. "Hank?" said Leroy. The woman walked to the back of the house. Leroy followed her. "Since you are asking," said the woman over her shoulder, "my name is Patty Lamarck. Maybelline is right over here." Patty Lamarck climbed the fence. Leroy climbed the fence too. "There she is," said Patty Lamarck. She waved her arm in the direction of the horse standing in the field. "There is Maybelline." At the sound of her name, the horse turned and came trotting toward them. She whinnied. She was a big horse, and her whinny was very loud. "Maybelline," said Patty Lamarck, "meet Hank." The horse whinnied again. She opened her mouth wide. Leroy took advantage of her mouth being open to look at her teeth. There weren't a lot of them. As far as he could tell, there were 4 in total. How many teeth was a horse supposed to have? Beatrice Leopold had not said. Leroy Ninker looked down at the horse's hooves. There were 4 of them, too. That seemed good. Yippee-yi-yo, said Leroy Ninker. The horse put her nose right up in his face. It was a large nose. There were whiskers on it, and it smelled very much like the nose of a horse. She likes you, said Patty Lamarck. Ain't that something? Maybelline don't like everybody. In fact, there's a whole raft of people she don't like. She is particular, if you don't mind me saying so. I don't mind you saying so, said Leroy Ninker. He put out his hand and touched the horse's nose. It was damp and velvety. Leroy felt his heart tumble and roll inside of him. Oh, to be a cowboy with a horse, to ride into the sunset, to ride into the wind, to be brave and true and cast a large horsey shadow. Maybelline, said Leroy Ninker. That's her name, said Patty Lamarck. I'll take her. And that is the end of chapter 2. But let's go back and talk for a few minutes. My firsties, you guys have been good word detectives. You've been working on context clues. And there's 2 words I want you to go back and watch this video and check out and see if you can figure out what they mean. And I want you to look for the word agitated or listen for it. And I want you to listen for the word consulted and figure out what those 2 words mean by using your good word detective skills that we've taught you. I'm going to leave you with this, a couple questions for you to think about, and then we'll talk about them on the next video. So the first question's on, do you think that Leroy is going to take Maybelline home with her? Do you think that Leroy will change her name? Does he like the name Maybelline? Do you think they're going to go on many adventures together? And last, do you know when Beatrice told him to check out the teeth and the hooves? Do you think that Beatrice would be okay with 4 teeth for a horse? Do you think that she would consider that a horse in good health? You guys think about those things, and then we'll talk about it on the next video. All right, I hope you guys are doing great. I miss you so much. Hopefully we'll see each other soon. Okay, before I sign off, I'm going to show you the part that I want you to look at. Look for consulted. He consulted the ad from the Gisford Gazette. What does consulted mean? And then the other word I wanted you to look at was agitated. And here it is right here. Don't get agitated, he told himself.